What is up, everybody? I hope you're all doing well. Today we are checking out the Crazy Tube Circuits Superconductor. This is a boost pedal, but it's more than just that. It actually covers 4 different really great kind of one knob wonder boost circuits from the past and the present. So, you know, think of like the old kind of Rangemaster thing. It covers that. Think of like, you know, an EP like an Echoplex preamp. It covers that. Think of the old like micro amps that everybody had. That was kind of the one knob wonder. That, and everybody still, there's a lot of guys still use those. They're great. All the way over to a more of kind of a MOSFET style boost, which is going to be more along the lines of like the Super Hard-On, which was a really great sounding boost pedal. So it's covering in this pedal those 4 circuit types, but then there's a little bit more going on. Okay, so for the Rangemaster and the EP, there's an actual EQ setting, and that allows you to choose between what would be considered kind of the original circuit, or you can go a little bit fatter by pushing the button in. We'll get into how that sounds in the demo. And then on the other side of it, for the micro amp and the MOSFET style boost, you can choose between what would be considered like the standard or classic 9 volts. But internally, if you want to actually have more headroom, you can hit a button that'll bump it up internally or charge it up to 18 volts. And we'll get into how that sounds in the demo as well. So let's get right into what's on the top. So you've got one big potentiometer. That's obviously your boost level, and depending on how you have the pedal set, you can go anywhere from like 17 dB of boost all the way up to, looks like almost 31 dB, depending on how you have it set up. So obviously quite a bit of range there. We'll check it out in the demo. You have the potentiometer below that. I shouldn't say potentiometer, but it allows you to choose the different modes or circuits. So you've got RM Rangemaster. Right next to that, you've got your EP, which is kind of your Echoplex thing. Next to that is your MA, which is microamp style circuit, and then MF is a MOSFET style circuit, so you can choose between those 4. Now, for the RM, as I mentioned, the RM circuit and the EQ, you can choose between an original kind of circuit or what's called FAT. We'll get into that in the demo. On the other side, there's a push switch that allows you, as I mentioned before, to choose between, if you're in microamp or the MOSFET, between the 9 volts and the 18 volt setting, and then of course you have your bypass switch on the bottom. So let's check this thing out. It's the Crazy Tube Circuits Superconductor. Okay, let's check this thing out. Here's just the guitar into the amp. I should point out, normally I would always use a super clean amp and make the pedal do all the work, especially if it's an overdrive pedal, distortion, fuzz, what have you. In this case, I'm using an amp that's got some breakup or overdrive, because that's what the superconductor is really designed to do, is kind of push amps that are already maybe slightly overdriven. So what you're hearing is my Friedman DS40, which is kind of a Marshall JTM style amp. So here, once again, is just the guitar into the amp. And let's start with the EP setting, which is going to be kind of like, you know, an Echoplex preamp, okay? Okay, so I just noodled around a little bit, turned the gain up and down, or I should say the boost, to just give you an idea of what was going on, as well as hit this fat switch. So let's just, since we're on the EP, we know what that's doing, right? That already sounds great, even if I kind of turn that up, the boost. Like, that's a pretty natural push, but what's really nice is in this EQ setting, you can go from what would be considered kind of the original circuit to a fat kind of thing. So check this out. So it not only adds, some lower mids, and I do hear a little bit of top end, and definitely fattens things up through the range, but it also does add some gain or saturation. So, for soloing or something like that, that would be really cool. It's a little too big sounding, at least for me, to do like a rhythm track like that, That sounds killer, but that would be a little bit too much low end for me. But I really like this fat, EQ setting. For solos, okay, let me shut that off. Let's bump over to the range master setting. That's what I use to take the solo. So I'm going to shut the pedal back off really quick. Or I should say the first solo. So let me turn it on. So you can hear right there, we're getting the same amount of boost, but now we're getting the range master thing. It's that whole kind of top end thing that, or I should say kind of upper mid thing that maybe by itself, isn't as desirable, but man, in a mix, it really sounds great. Cuts through really nicely. We can crank it up, maybe do neck position. Now with that, you can still employ that fat switch. So in this case, if you don't want that kind of upper mid thing poking out quite as much, if you employ the fat switch, it kind of makes that a little bit less, perceived or present, because it's adding a little bit more saturation and some low end. Okay, so this fat switch only applies to the EP and the range master or RM settings. Let's go ahead and move to the other side of the pedal. Now this is the MA, which is essentially kind of the micro amp thing. And it's really cool too. I mean, this was, you know, back in the day, you know, all the cats I knew were using the micro amp. It was kind of a secret weapon. So check it out. Here's just the amp. So it just makes everything sound a little bit just bigger and just kind of more push. And of course, as I dimed that, I mean, it's 17 dB of boost, like clobbering the front end of that. So it'll get a little bit out of control. There can be some low end anomalies that can maybe start happening with that much boost. Okay, so we were listening to this in the 18 volt setting, which is where this switch is set right now. So, you know, in the 18 volt setting, what's happened is you're basically charging the voltage internally up to 18 volts from 9 volts. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and switch that off and let you hear how it sounds in the more kind of classic 9 volts. Back to 18 volt. So in 18 volt, it's a little bit tighter sounding to me, at least in my opinion. In 9 volt, it definitely sounds more vintage, and sorry for the noisy, I gotta get that fixed, potentiometer. That feels kind of more squishy. 18 volts. It's almost like it's more, dare I say, modern, but it does have kind of a more kind of, it's a little bit tighter, and the saturation's a bit different in that 18 volt setting. That's kind of to each his own. It's just cool to have that option depending on what you're after. Okay, let's go all the way over to the MOSFET boost, which is kind of based on the super hard-on pedal that was out. That was a really great pedal. So I'll just start same way. Here's just the amp again. So this is, to me, in my opinion, and let me know in the comments below, but this is kind of the biggest sounding, like the MOSFET kind of boost thing is the biggest. Let's just try throwing the voltage switch. We're at 9 volts right now. Let's switch to 18. 9-volt. Now in that setting, it seems to react almost the opposite of the microamp setting. Whereas the microamp setting sounded tighter 18, a little bit looser 9. This is kind of the opposite. In the 9-volt setting, it sounds a little tighter to me. And in the 18, it becomes a little bit more saturated, and I feel like I have to hang on to it a little bit more. But once again, it's to each his own, as you know, like that for a fat solo tone. Yeah, it's more saturated and almost a little bit more spongy. So that is the Crazy Tube Circuits Superconductor. If you have any further questions about it, definitely go to the website and check it out. And as always, I really appreciate you guys tuning in, and we'll see you next time.